Let me tell you this, but don't think it's a lie. The richer someone is, the harder it is for them to find true love. It's even harder to attract women, and that's the truth. So stop imagining how you think things are. Oh, look at that guy driving a Lamborghini Aventador. Look at that guy driving a Huracan. Look at that guy in a McLaren. They don't have true love. Really. You know, back when I was a DJ, how many women were around? Oh, Xiaobai, I want to have your child. I'll pour you drinks. You see, after more than 10 years, I made money, and the cars I drive have only gotten better. Sometimes, I'd meet a woman and take her home, but it's like she's giving me a discount. Ah, don't give me discounts. The heat is unbearable. They don't care about what you can do. They care about what you're going to buy for them tomorrow, how long you'll take them shopping, and how much you'll spend. They don't care anymore about your skills, your talents, or even if you still beatbox. So, brothers, while you're envying others, they might be envying you. In the end, it's all just tears.
Rich husband goes bankrupt. Wife elopes with his brother. Rich husband goes bankrupt in business, and his wife elopes with his brother. 8 years later, the husband makes a comeback, driving luxury cars and living in mansions, with a young and beautiful woman by his side. At this moment, the ex-wife returns demanding $2 million, saying she still loves him. Will the tycoon grant her request? This middle-aged woman, still with a certain charm, is Mrs. Yang. In her youth, she had delicate facial features and skin as smooth as jade. She was considered a great beauty by the people in the area, but now she lives alone in a large mansion, consumed by loneliness. Although she owns a mansion that ordinary people envy, Mrs. Yang is still not happy. After all, she was once a tycoon's wife, enjoying a life of luxury and comfort. When Mrs. Yang was 19 years old, she met Mr. Zhu, who was in his early 20s. Mr. Zhu at the time was not only handsome, but also very successful in business. The two, who were a perfect match, fell deeply in love at first sight and soon got married. Mr. Zhu's business flourished, and by the year 2000, he already owned assets worth tens of millions. Mrs. Yang, who was of humble origin, followed her husband and enjoyed all the wealth, becoming a rich wife envied by everyone. Recalling the past glory is like a dream. Why is Mrs. Yang living so lonely today? She says that 8 years ago, she had an argument with her husband, and after that, she moved out, wanting to separate for a while so they could both cool down. She thought that after a while, her husband would take her back home to live together. However, her husband forged a divorce certificate. He went around announcing that he was divorced and even got a beautiful girlfriend to live at home. Mrs. Yang felt usurped, as if everything that was hers had been stolen. The mediator was very surprised, because in today's society, where laws are respected, someone would dare to forge a divorce certificate. So, everyone went to Mr. Zhu's house to seek justice for Mrs. Yang. The one who opened the door was Mr. Zhu's current girlfriend, Miss Zhou. Miss Zhou had a gentle and pleasant aura and treated the unexpected visitors politely. Mrs. Yang told reporters, "Look, this is the woman who stole my husband and destroyed my marriage." Miss Zhou was not angry, but calmly said, "Zhu Yang and I started dating after you divorced, and I have also seen your divorce proof." Miss Zhou said that Mrs. Yang and Mr. Zhu had already divorced 8 years ago, and that she and Mr. Zhu have been together for 6 years. In any case, she cannot be considered a third party. This is not the first time that Mrs. Yang has come to create problems. She is just jealous of the good life her ex-husband has now. She just wants money. The rich husband goes bankrupt in business, the wife elopes with his brother, and now the husband makes a comeback, living in mansions and driving luxury cars, with a new young and beautiful lover by his side. The ex-wife arrives at this moment demanding $2 million. What will be the ending, Mrs. Yang furiously accuses Miss Zhou of destroying her family and also shows a divorce certificate, saying that the stamp on the certificate is missing, which proves that it was forged. She insists that she never divorced her husband and that Miss Zhou must leave the house. At this moment, Mr. Zhu arrives home. Seeing his ex-wife creating trouble again, Mr. Zhu feels helpless. The reporters inquire about the authenticity of the divorce certificate. and Mr. Ju asserts that it is genuine and presents the divorce agreement signed by both parties 8 years ago. Only then did the reporters discover another version of the story. At that time, Mr. Ju founded several food processing plants, with his business flourishing, which made him a well-known entrepreneur in the region, and his standard of living increased. But in 2005, his business suffered a setback. Mr. Ju went bankrupt, losing not only his fortune of millions, but also incurring millions in debt. Worst of all, at that moment, he discovered that his wife, Mrs. Yang, was having an affair with his best friend. A series of blows almost drove him to ruin, but he managed to pull himself together and negotiated a divorce with his wife. Mrs. Yang, who was already cheating on her husband, seeing that he had gone bankrupt, signed the divorce agreement without hesitation. Under the supervision of local government officials, they signed a legally binding divorce agreement. In the agreement, Mr. Ju voluntarily assumed all the debts and left the large mansion to Mrs. Yang. Faced with a wife who betrayed him, Mr. Ju's attitude was fair. Later, he went to live alone in a rented property, struggling to pay off the debts. The difficulty of that time cannot be understood by others. It was during this period that he met Miss Jo. Miss Jo was not an ambitious woman, but rather someone who embraced Mr. Ju in his time of difficulty. She accompanied him step by step to reverse the situation. Today, Mr. Ju has made a comeback. His business is returning to its glory days. He is very grateful for Miss Jo's encouragement and companionship. The two have been dating for 6 years and are still as in love as they were in the beginning. Therefore, the story is not as Mrs. Yang described. Mr. Ju and Mrs. Yang divorced 8 years ago under the supervision of local government officials. He no longer has any relationship with her, but Mrs. Yang insists that the divorce certificate is illegal. She claims that she never went to the registry office and that the divorce certificate has no official stamp. She believes that she and Mr. Ju are still married and that she now has the right to divide her husband's assets. Is this divorce certificate legal? Are Mrs. Yang and Mr. Ju still married in the eyes of the law? The woman takes advantage of her husband's bankruptcy and elopes with his brother. Now the husband has made a comeback, living in mansions and driving luxury cars with his family by his side. She returns demanding $2 million and saying that this is what she deserves. Will the ex-husband grant her request? The first time she saw Mrs. Yang shouting at the registry office staff, she accused them of having issued a divorce certificate for her and her husband without her permission. The staff was confused and said that Mrs. Yang had signed the divorce agreement willingly. All pages of the divorce agreement had her signature. How did she lose her memory after 8 years? Mrs. Yang, angrily, pointed at the divorce certificate page and said, "There's no stamp here. How can you say this is real?" The staff patiently explained that perhaps they had forgotten to put the stamp on it at the time, but that the divorce certificate was still valid. The divorce required the signing of several documents, and since Mrs. Yang signed them all personally at the time, she and her ex-husband are no longer married under the law. The marriage certificate was also canceled 8 years ago, and they hope that Mrs. Yang would no longer come to the registry office to create problems. She had already been there several times. Mrs. Yang threw the divorce certificate on the table in anger and started scolding the staff until the mediator pulled her out of the registry office. After leaving the registry office, Mrs. Yang went to Mr. Ju's house again and made her demand. She asked Mr. Ju to give her $2 million, explaining that she needed the money to live and support herself in old age. Mr. Ju refused without hesitation. He said that he had no more relationship with Mrs. Yang and that she should not expect him to bear her living expenses or old age expenses. Mrs. Yang retorted that she had been with him for so many years and that she was entitled to a portion of the wealth that he had conquered with his success. Seeing his ex-wife's true face, Mr. Ju felt helpless. At the time, he had assumed all the debts and left the only mansion for his wife. Even during the period when he was struggling to pay off debts, he still sent money to his ex-wife and son every month. He did not expect that his ex-wife would be ungrateful and even be greedy, demanding $2 million. She was a money grubber and obsessed with money. He rejected the emotional blackmail of the ex-wife and the mediator, insisting that he would not give her a cent, and left. The mediator called the son of Mrs. Yang and Mr. Ju to hear his opinion on the matter. The son said that he did not have such a close relationship with his mother, as he always had more contact with his father. He could not understand his mother's actions and said that she always lied. He could no longer believe his mother's words. A happy family of 3 is now full of resentment and distrust. Although Mrs. Yang repeatedly says that she still has feelings for Mr. Zhu, her actions contradict her words. As her son said, it is unknown which of her words is true or false. It is said that cohabitation reveals a person's heart. You need to go through difficulties together to know someone's true love. What do you think of Mrs. Yang's request for $2 million from her ex-husband?
Why is it harder for men who earn over $1 million a year and drive luxury cars to find good women? Let me explain why. Only those who actually drive luxury cars understand that the better the car, the harder it is to find true love. Many men, after working hard and achieving career success, are able to afford great cars. To outsiders, it seems like these men are surrounded by women. But in reality, it's not like that. While there may be many beautiful women around them, almost all of those who show interest are drawn by their financial status. When you take a beautiful woman on a date driving a luxury car, they are very sharp. If you don't buy things for her, don't spend money, or give her expensive gifts, they act like innocent girls, keeping their distance from you. To attract these women, you try to show off your financial value. However, the women you attract with this see you as an ATM or a provider, offering only fake feelings. If you don't give enough, how could they easily give themselves to you? And then you start to feel like there are no good women left. Each one seems more materialistic than the last, and the cost of finding someone keeps going up. Women become harder to deal with. Some of them, including the gold diggers and opportunists, love to string you along, hoping to make you spend on them. On the other hand, truly good women are self-aware and won't fall for you just because of your financial status. For them, what matters most in a boyfriend is kindness and the ability to provide emotional value. If you try to win them over by offering money and material things, they are likely to reject you and become even more cautious with you. We have many students like you, with excellent conditions, successful careers, high incomes, and great cars. Yet, they feel it's very difficult to find a woman who genuinely loves them. Most of the time, only gold diggers and opportunists with fake emotions show interest in them. But actually, solving this problem isn't that hard. The key lies in your mindset and how you present yourself. By adjusting your mentality and strengthening your inner self, combined with your already great financial conditions, attracting a high-quality woman will feel like giving wings to a tiger. If you need help, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Why do many rich men struggle to find a partner? Don't scroll away. The truth is harsh, and men need to listen to the end. Young poor guys often change partners, but rich men can't even find one. Why? Simply put, it's because they're not picky. A poor guy, after all, doesn't have money. He thinks, if I'm full, the family won't starve, and any woman will do. He doesn't worry about appearances, and the goal is just to hook up with anyone. But when a man has money, things change. As his worth increases, his tastes naturally get more refined. They might play around a little, but when it comes to a serious relationship, the woman needs to have a good education, a solid worldview, good looks, and a good background. The focus is on women who are wealthy and demanding. Do you think they don't have plenty of suitors around them? Even if you're a luxury dish, at a banquet full of delicacies, you'll still lose your shine. That's why many rich men end up in a complicated emotional state. They like someone, but that person doesn't feel the same. The ones they want are out of reach, and those they could get simply don't attract them. Meanwhile, young poor guys get married early and already have kids, while rich men drag their feet. So, having money doesn't necessarily make it easier to attract a woman, because, with more refined tastes and lack of skills, when they meet the right woman, they can only stare at each other, not knowing what to do. They are like the king of losers, always stuck in the mess of the relationship market.
The other day, a friend asked me, why do rich men become bad? What's the psychological reason behind a man changing his behavior after marriage? The saying rich men become bad seems to hold truth for many people, and it's easy to see why. We all know those examples of men who, after becoming successful, leave their longtime wives and marry younger, more attractive women. Recently, while researching videos on Chinese platforms, I came across a story from the consultant Zijing who experienced something similar. Zijing's husband came from a poor rural family. In high school, he was an excellent student, but due to the family's financial struggles, he had to give up an incredible academic opportunity and move to Zijing's city to work. When he arrived in this coastal city, he had to sleep in parks, on the streets, and in shelters, taking on temporary jobs until he landed a steady job as a salesperson. It was during this difficult period that he met Zijing. Although she didn't come from a rich family, she was from a middle-class urban background, and despite their differences, they decided to get married. In the beginning, Zijing's husband treated her very well. Every time they had a fight, he would apologize and make up. As time passed, the differences between them started to grow. Her husband enjoyed reading and, even after long workdays, would find time to study. Zijing, on the other hand, liked to play mahjong and watch TV shows, spending the entire day at home doing nothing, not even the housework. As her husband's career progressed, Zijing became more and more lazy. She, who already didn't enjoy socializing before the marriage, became even more reclusive. After losing her job, she decided not to look for another one and spend her days at home, taking care of the house, the child, but mostly occupied with TV and mahjong. 7 years into their marriage, Zijing discovered her husband was cheating on her. At first, she thought he would apologize and want to reconcile, as he had done in the past, but to her surprise, he handed her a divorce agreement and was determined to separate. When she sought our help, the legal process was already underway, but we managed to intervene in time to save the marriage. On the outside, the marriage seemed to have ended because of her husband's infidelity. However, the reason for his change after becoming wealthy is closely tied to his wife. Reason 1. Increasing differences between the couple the Diderot effect, identified by French philosopher Denis Diderot, describes a curious phenomenon when someone acquires something new and valuable. They feel the need to update the rest of their environment to match this new acquisition. Diderot, for example, replaced his furniture after receiving a luxurious robe. This phenomenon reflects a shift in mindset, and the same happens to men when they become wealthy. They begin to desire more. Not just a bigger house, better cars, and brand new clothes, but even a wife who matches their new status. As a wife, it's important to realize that as your husband grows in status, you two must evolve. Otherwise, you risk being left behind. Reason 2. Lack of communication as men gain more wealth, they begin to expand their horizons. They start demanding more from their wives, particularly in terms of education, worldview, and interests. If the wife can't keep up, communication between them begins to deteriorate. For example, while the husband discusses million-dollar business deals, the wife is still focused on haggling a few cents at the market. This communication gap only distances the couple further. Additionally, wealthy men tend to form relationships with younger, more qualified women, which deepens the emotional distance between the couple. Reason 3. Change in the power dynamic of the marriage before the husbands. Success. Some women, like Zijing, were in a superior position in the relationship, but after he achieved wealth, she was left behind. These women still expect their husbands to remain submissive as they were before, but instead, the husband now expects more from his wife. There are also women who feel entitled to maintain an authoritative role due to the support they provided their husbands during difficult times. They use the past as a way to keep control, but this undermines the husband's self-esteem, creating conflicts that can ultimately lead to separation. In reality, rich men don't necessarily become bad, but many women with these men fail to keep up with their growth. They either become dependent or live with insecurities and mistrust, which accelerates the destruction of the marriage. Instead of worrying about the possibility of being left behind, a woman should focus on improving herself to keep pace with her partner's growth. What's your opinion on this dilemma? I'd love to hear it, so leave a comment below. If you liked the video, Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one.